Today, we're talking about why China's future nuclear-powered aircraft carrier might actually have less reactor trouble than the traditional American and French route, and why its long-term potential could be even crazier. Over the years, aircraft carriers have been among the most obvious symbols of national power on Earth. If a country can actually build one, afford one, and keep one running, that's not just impressive. That's next level. Because you're not just building a ship. You're building a floating Air Force base. A moving command center. A machine that enables a country to project military power far beyond its own coastline. A real navy. For decades in this field, the United States has basically had a monopoly. Like complete domination. France is pretty much the only country that can even sit at the same table in the nuclear aircraft carrier club. But let's be honest, it's still nowhere near America. The Charles de Gaulle is so much smaller that it almost feels awkward to compare it. It's not even half the size of the USS Gerald R. Ford. Still, it's nuclear-powered at least. In contrast, countries like Britain, India, and China have continued to use conventional power carriers. Russia currently has no operational aircraft carrier in service, after the Admiral Kuznetsov was out of action since 2017 for overhaul and repairs. But now, the nuclear carrier club might actually be getting a new member. China appears to be accelerating toward its first nuclear-powered supercarrier. Most outside analysts are calling it the Type 004 carrier. And if current estimates are even remotely accurate, this ship could become one of the largest and most advanced aircraft carriers in human history. It might even be bigger than America's Ford class. And this is way bigger than just a naval upgrade story. It is about strategic positioning, national prestige, global sea power, and especially future influence in the Pacific and Indian Oceans. But what suddenly makes this whole story way more interesting isn't just the ship itself. It's the massive scientific breakthrough China just dropped. A few days ago, China's National Natural Science Foundation officially listed thorium uranium fuel conversion as one of the country's top 10 scientific breakthroughs. The moment that news came out, the entire nuclear physics community basically exploded. Researchers were flooding social media, celebrating it. A lot of them were all saying the same thing. We finally made it. Now that sentence sounds simple. But behind it are decades of brutal lab work. Countless sleepless nights. Years of grinding. And here's the really important part. That is not just a normal research breakthrough. That could directly affect the heart of China's future nuclear aircraft carrier. Because when most people look at a carrier, their eyes go straight to the flight deck. They look at the fighter jets, the catapult systems, the electromagnetic launch system. And yeah, those things look cool. But what really determines whether a nuclear carrier can dominate the ocean for decades? It is the thing most people never see. The reactor. That's the real weak point. That's the core. And in this area, the US and France have basically written the rules for decades. The Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, the Gerald R. Ford-class aircraft carrier, and France's Charles de Gaulle, R-91, all use the same route. Pressurized water reactors. Now, yes, this technology is mature. It works. But let's be honest. It's not magic. In fact, it comes with a whole bunch of inherited old problems. A traditional pressurized water reactor is basically like an extreme pressure cooker. It uses very high pressure to heat water into steam, which then drives the turbines. And here's the issue. The pressure itself is a risk. In peacetime, fine. But in wartime, if the carrier takes missile damage, and the cooling system gets compromised, that superheated high-pressure steam can become a nightmare. And that's not fearmongering. That's just physics. There's a reason the US Navy's damage control manuals are basically the size of bricks. They're not for decoration. Reactor emergencies are among the highest priorities. And it gets worse. Pressurized water reactors depend heavily on the cooling system. If power fails, the cooling pumps stop. Residual heat can't escape. And the core temperature can spiral out of control fast. Incidents like the 3 Mile Island accident and the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster fundamentally came down to this issue. So even though American carriers are incredibly powerful, their nuclear route has always carried this old-school pressure cooker burden. And this is exactly where China's recent thorium molten salt reactor breakthrough becomes such a huge deal. Because this thing is basically a monster in the fourth-generation reactor world. It's a completely different way of thinking. If the traditional reactor is a pressure cooker, then the thorium molten salt reactor is more like a normal pot. It uses liquid salt circulation at normal pressure. And this is the key point. Normal pressure. Not high pressure. That means one of the biggest safety risks is removed at the physical level from the beginning. And that's why, if China's future nuclear carrier adopts a similar technology route, in theory, its reactor safety could be less troublesome than the American and French traditional designs. In simple terms, way less likely to blow the lid off. And here's the insane part. It also comes with a built-in physical shutdown mechanism. If the temperature becomes abnormal, the liquid salt automatically drains into a safe containment tank. No external electricity needed. No cooling pumps. No human intervention. It literally breaks itself through physics. It's kind of like a car with ABS. Plus automatic engine shutdown built in. And this becomes particularly important in battle damage scenarios. Even if the carrier gets heavily hit, it doesn't face the same high-pressure runaway risk as a traditional reactor. At worst, it enters a dormant state. Repair it. And restart. If this can truly be engineered onto a warship, that is absolutely unbelievable. And this is why China's future nuclear carrier could theoretically have fewer reactor-related problems. Because it's not just copying the old American and French routes. It's trying to switch the whole lane. Think of it like this. While everyone else is still fixing pressure cookers, China might already be building a smart rice cooker. That's the advantage of coming later. Sometimes being late to the table means stepping on fewer landmines. And there's another point a lot of people overlook. Fuel. Traditional pressurized water reactors are a nightmare to refuel. The Nimitz class has a service life of about 50 years. And during that time, it usually needs 2 or 3 major refueling overhauls. Each one can keep the ship in dry dock for years. The money burn rate is ridiculous. Even the Ford class is still working out many system issues. And right now we still don't even know whether that 30-hour fire caused deeper structural problems, or how long repairs might take. Across a 50-year service life, the operating costs are astronomical. Now, one of the core advantages of a thorium molten salt reactor is its extremely long fuel cycle. The theoretical design goal is 30 to 50 years with almost no refueling. Now think about what that means if it actually gets installed on a carrier. It means once the carrier leaves dry dock, it might not need major reactor teardown work for decades. Operational availability goes through the roof. And in great power naval competition, that matters a lot. People love watching jets take off and land because it looks cool. But the real question is this. How much time can the carrier actually patrol the sea? America says it has 11 carriers. But how many can truly show up immediately, ready to fight at full strength? The one that stays online the longest. The one with insane uptime. That's the real beast. And in this area, China may actually have future potential advantages over both the US and France. On top of that, China itself has extremely rich thorium reserves. A lot of this stuff used to be treated almost like mining waste from rare earth extraction. Basically almost thrown away as trash. And now, suddenly, it becomes top-tier strategic fuel. That's actually wild. Before, other countries could choke your supply chain. Now, suddenly, the mine is in your own backyard. You're the mine boss. How crazy is that? And this is another reason why China's future nuclear carrier could face fewer problems in both reactor design and fuel supply. Because this isn't just a technology breakthrough. It's resource independence. No need to keep watching other people's faces. Now, of course, let's be fair. Mature technology does not necessarily mean immediate military deployment. China's style has always been steady, low-key, civilian first, military later. First tested in civilian projects. For example, the already announced thorium-powered container ship project. A lot of people ask, why not put it directly on a carrier? But honestly, this is actually the smart move. A container ship is basically a giant floating laboratory. Complex routes, long operating times, constant environmental changes. Perfect for testing reactor reliability. Once enough data is collected, the talent pipeline is trained, and the regulatory system is built, then moving it onto a military vessel, especially a supercarrier, becomes the natural next step. So the real question right now is not whether China can build it. The real question is, when do they officially announce it? Because a nuclear carrier is not just put the reactor in and done. After that comes port support, crew training, nuclear safety regulations, wartime command chains, global logistics. The entire system has to be ready. And from the bigger strategic picture, the really scary part about the Type 004 is not just that it may be bigger than the Ford class. It's that it may adopt a completely different nuclear propulsion route from the US and France. If the thorium molten salt reactor eventually matures for ship deployment, then China may not be catching up. It may be starting an entirely new game. While everyone else is still racing laps on the old track, China might already be changing the map. And that is what's really worth watching over the next 10 years. We made a video before about China's Fujian aircraft carrier, comparing Chinese and American carriers. A lot of the points covered there weren't repeated in this video. So definitely check that one out next.